Hey, this is London and we're going to do a video on paper piecing a big giant wolf pattern. Paper piecing big giant quilts. So I wanted to show you some of the tricks and the tips and some of the things I learned, and yeah, let's do this. I know I've talked about this quilt quite a bit because that's been the project I worked on last year, but I wanted to share with you like some of the things I've learned. Part one, the pattern. When you buy the pattern, you have to go and make another printout of the pattern, because the printout of the pattern when you buy it has a top and bottom, and so you need to go to Kinko's or somewhere and make a printout. My printout came out to about like $20, and I ended up doing it twice, so it cost me like 37 bucks. I recommend when you do a printout, also do a printout on the very top and back of the top of the pattern, so you have a color grid, and make sure that it's colored so that it helps you when you're using your fabric colors with the colors of the pattern, that they coincide. But yeah, I didn't think that buying the pattern would make me have to go to print the pattern out again. And I didn't expect that cost. So when you're working on these projects, that's a cost. I also wanted to share some of the tools that you're gonna need. I recommend you have a bag that holds your pattern in one space, or a bin or a container or something, because this project is a big one. Another thing I recommend is you have a rotary to cut your paper. I don't recommend scissors. I think it takes too long. Use an old rotary blade to cut your paper. I also recommend you have that same rotary blade to cut the paper and the fabric down. You may have to go back a couple times, but I use the same rotary blade for cutting the paper when I was taking the pattern apart, and I used the same rotary blade when I was cutting the fabric down when I had sewn the fabric to the paper. A cardstock, but I laminated it. It makes it a little bit stiffer. Called an add a quarter, but you can use your ruler to add a quarter. It kind of buds up to the material, like you see it budding up to this paper. And I do recommend you have some type of glue. My favorite glue, and I think it's the best glue out there for fabric. Sorry, anybody else wants to sell expensive glue that doesn't work as well. I recommend the Wash Away Elmer's glue sticks. They're the best. Sorry. I think they're the best. I also recommend that when you're doing this, when you have selected your fabric, put a sticker on your fabric, what color you've designated that fabric to be, and also do a picture graph of what the pattern says that fabric's gonna have. Put it on your fabric also. I recommend you always keep your label on that fabric. If you have scraps, keep them, because sometimes on the smaller pieces, I would use scraps to sew on the little pieces, smaller pieces, smaller pieces. This way you can kind of manage the waste of fabric that you're gonna waste a little bit. When you're cutting your fabrics for this paper piece that you're gonna start working on, that you check the grid on the pattern, and then you check the grid on your fabric, and check a couple times, because when I did put the quilt top together, there was like 4 pieces where I didn't put the right color fabric on. I kind of messed up here. This should be blue and this should be gray, so it makes the eye look different. So I had to unstitch it and fix it, which was annoying when you're putting a big giant piece together. So when you're cutting your pieces on the pattern, you'll have a right piece and the left piece. Make sure that you put those together when you're cutting everything out, because I didn't, and so I had to search for it in the mess of all the cutout. You could do 2 pieces in one moment and get them done, meaning you're cutting your pieces for both sides, picking the colors for both sides, and then sewing your pieces for both sides in one shot. That really does help you get through this pattern quickly, but also when you're cutting it, put both sides together and don't have them in a mess. This is considered a 3-piece, where I'm piecing 3 pieces together. I would go ahead and get my background. Here's my background, and so here's my ivory. It would be this piece. These are the 2 pieces, but you're gonna cut them differently because of how they are set. I also shared that I pieced the right and left together, so you could see that I have the pieces that are kind of alike. I'm gonna fold this piece to this line, and then everything else, I'm gonna try to get it to disappear. Like that. So this is the piece I need. And I'm gonna cut this piece. And then paper piecing bigger is always better. And you see, I also cut 2 pieces for that section. And they're facing out or facing in because they have to go in opposite directions. This other piece that I need to make. And I need this size. This is my big piece for this one. These are my pieces for me to piece. And you can see they're 2 pieces, one for one side and one for the opposite side. And this is the fabric for each individual piece. And what I'll do, since I'm not going to sew right now, I'm going to pin, since I already had a pin with this, like this set is already, ouch, ready to sew. Now you're gonna have a lot of pieces everywhere. It's gonna be very disorganized and it's gonna be messy. My recommendation is when you have all your pieces cut out, make yourself a folder of some kind. Hold on. There's war in here. I also recommend that you organize your pieces based on your piecing. For example, this is a folder for piecing 4 pieces. I didn't see that it's 5 pieces, so like 1, 2, 3, 4. And I had a folder that only had piecing 4 pieces. For example, this is a folder that only holds piecing, I believe, 3 pieces. So this is 5 and above pieces. See how many pieces that has. And I put it in folders and I worked on one folder at a time. I had to get rid of some dogs because, oh my God, I just can't. It's like having toddlers. Anyway, so what was I saying? When you're doing paper piecing at this magnitude, I really do recommend that, one, and I've shared videos, is I sorted by like putting one piece of fabric together. Then I sorted by like these 2. These are, and this is the right and then the left. And the way I originally sorted is I cut everything out and then I sorted single fabrics, double fabrics. And for example, this was considered 1, 2, 3 pieces that we're gonna put together. I also sorted them by 4 pieces that you sew together. For example, this is a 4 piece. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. No matter what, if it was the same color that you sewed together, because those are 2 sew lines. 12 seams that you sewed together on this one. Oh God, why? Look at her. So bad, I can't deal with her. Why are you this way? The reason I recommend this way, since you already have your right and lefts together, it was really hard for me when I started working on putting the 2 pieces of fabric together to get my mind to remember how paper piecing worked. Almost like having to put 2 pieces was less frustrating than having to put a paper piece fabrics on 5 pieces that I would have to sew. And I messed up a lot on my 2 pieces because my brain wasn't thinking paper piecing. But after a while, when I got through that folder, I kind of understood the process a bit better for myself. I recommend that you do all your pieces and get everything completely put together before you start putting any sections of your design or quilt top together, because I realized that once I did that, putting the quilt together was so much easier. Remember this? I'm sure you remember it. It was sometime last year in 2023 when I started it. And I finally got all of the pieces put together. There's a right and left of this. There's a right and left of this, and a right and left in this. Kind of excited to be at this point. So I'm gonna be sorting. I don't think you want to watch it, do you? Like, so here's 16, 17, 30, 31. That grouping, and also do this grouping. Here's 31 on this side, but the opposite side is 72. So that would be this grouping. To be this section right here. So here's 32. And I'm going through all the numbers, but here is also 73. 32 is right here, and 73 is right here. And as I was getting ready to start putting everything together, it was so much easier to organize the pieces based on how the pattern asked me to organize it. Sure, the same thing, just mirror images of each other. So I'm making sure that I have all the pieces so that I know I have them all now before I start piecing it together and it's not in order. And once I have all the pieces, I put it in the folder by itself and putting it to the side. I'm going to do these two, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all these other piles somewhere else so I could just work on this one section. Kind of messed up here. This should be blue and this should be gray, so it makes the eye look different. I'm gonna put that one and that one together, and then this one and the middle piece together. And this is the middle piece I'm talking about. Putting the quilt itself together, that kind of went pretty quickly. I think I spent less than 2.5, 3 hours. It took me maybe an hour or 30 minutes to put the mouth together, and then another hour to put the ears, and then the side panel, and then the side of the hair on the bottom probably took me another hour. You need to know how to paper piece to do this. This is not, I don't think this is a beginner paper piecing. And I was looking out there, there's not a lot of videos on how to do this. I don't think I would have been able to do this if I didn't know some type of paper piecing. I really do appreciate you taking your time and hanging out with me. And I love you, okay? So proud of myself.